I never expected to write this post, but what happened in my family has destroyed me completely. It's about how my parents and sister betrayed me in a way that led to my 2-year-old son's death. Growing up, there were 4 of us: my dad, 60M, who works as a senior insurance agent at a big firm, my mom, 58F, who teaches math at the local high school, my older sister Sarah, 35F, and me, 28F. We lived in a nice neighborhood and had what looked like a good life, but there was always one big problem: my parents' extreme favoritism toward Sarah. The favoritism started when I was very young. In elementary school, Sarah got piano lessons, dance classes, and art tutorials. When I asked to join any activities, my parents said we couldn't afford 2 kids in extracurriculars. Sarah got new clothes from the mall while I wore her hand-me-downs. She got the newest iPhone models every year while I used her old phones until they stopped working. When Sarah was 13, she wanted braces. My parents paid $6,000 without any hesitation. A year later, when my dentist said I needed braces too, they said we had to wait because of money problems. I never got them, and now at 28, I still have crooked teeth. For her 16th birthday, Sarah got a brand new Honda Civic. When I turned 16, they told me to work and save up for my own car. I spent 2 years working at McDonald's after school and still only managed to buy a used Toyota that broke down after 6 months. The pattern continued through high school. Sarah was allowed to focus only on studies and fun activities. I had to work part-time jobs to pay for basic things like school supplies and clothes. When college time came, Sarah went to an expensive private university while I had to start at community college. My parents paid all her expenses, including a semester abroad in Paris and a condo near her campus. I worked 2 jobs, one at a coffee shop and another as a campus library assistant, just to afford my textbooks and bus fare to classes. I met my husband James, 30M, during my 3rd year after I transferred to State University. He was studying engineering and working part-time at the campus IT department. We started dating, and for the first time, I felt like someone truly cared about me. James came from a middle-class family too, but his parents had passed away in a car accident when he was in high school. He lived with his aunt through high school and worked hard to put himself through college. We dated for 3 years before getting married. I wanted a simple courthouse wedding because we were saving money for a house down payment. But James insisted I should have a real wedding since it was a once-in-a-lifetime event. We planned a small ceremony at a local church with about 50 guests. Sarah didn't come because she claimed she had an important work meeting. My parents almost skipped it too because Sarah had planned a family vacation that weekend. They changed their plans at the last minute after my mom's sister confronted them about it. 2 years into our marriage, I got pregnant with Tommy. The pregnancy was rough from the start: severe morning sickness, gestational diabetes, and then at 32 weeks, the worst news came. During a routine scan, doctors found that Tommy had a serious heart condition. They explained he would need several surgeries throughout his life, starting right after birth. James and I were devastated but determined to do whatever it took to give our son a healthy life. Tommy's first surgery happened the day after he was born. It cost $150,000, and while insurance covered most of it, we still had to pay $30,000 out of pocket. We used all our savings and took out loans. James started working overtime at his engineering job and took freelance projects on weekends. I was working as a virtual assistant from home while taking care of Tommy. 6 months later, Tommy needed another surgery. We were already struggling with payments for the first surgery, so I went to my parents for help. They had just returned from a 2-week Mediterranean cruise with Sarah. I showed them all our medical bills and explained how we had already sold our car and cut every possible expense. They said they were having financial problems and couldn't help. I believed them because I didn't know the truth then. For the next year and a half, we barely managed. James worked 80-hour weeks until he got so exhausted he fainted at work. I took on more virtual assistant clients and started selling things from our house on eBay. During this time, my parents bought Sarah a new Mercedes for her birthday and went on 3 family vacations with her. They said these were all paid for by Sarah because she had a good job in finance. I later found out this was a lie. Last month, Tommy got much worse suddenly. His heart wasn't functioning properly, and he needed emergency surgery that would cost $50,000. Our insurance had reached its yearly limit, and we had no way to get that much money quickly. I went to my parents again, this time literally on my knees begging them for help. I offered to sign a legal contract, to pay them back double the amount, to give them our house, anything they wanted. They refused again, claiming they had no savings left because of recent medical bills. Tommy died 2 days later because we couldn't afford his surgery. He was only 2 years old. At his funeral, my parents stayed for only 30 minutes because they said they had to help Sarah with something urgent. Yesterday, while cleaning out Tommy's room, I found my dad's old phone under the bed. He had visited 3 weeks ago and must have dropped it. The phone still worked, and when I checked it, I found hundreds of messages between my parents and Sarah. That's how I discovered the truth that destroyed whatever was left of our family. The messages revealed that Sarah had been living a completely different life that none of us knew about. She had been married for 7 years to a man named Mark and had 3 kids with him in Florida. My parents had been supporting them financially all this time, sending them huge amounts of money every month. I spent 5 hours reading through all the messages. Every month, my parents sent Sarah $5,000 for regular expenses. They paid $2,000 per month for each of her 3 kids to attend private school. They covered their family vacations to places like Hawaii and Europe. Last year, they bought them a summer house in the Hamptons for $400,000. My parents even paid for their weekly house cleaning service and lawn maintenance. The most recent messages were about a beach house Sarah wanted to buy. 5 days before they told me they couldn't help save Tommy, my parents sent Sarah $75,000 for the down payment. There were also messages about Christmas presents they had already bought for Sarah's kids, 3 new iPads and a gaming console. Each kid was getting presents worth more than what Tommy's surgery would have cost. Today was our monthly family dinner. Everyone comes to my parents' house on the last Sunday of each month, all my aunts, uncles, and cousins. My mom started this tradition 5 years ago to keep the family close. Usually, around 25 people attend. Sarah never came to these dinners, always making excuses about work commitments. Now I know she was with her secret family in Florida. I took my dad's phone to dinner. After everyone finished eating and moved to the living room for coffee, I connected the phone to the TV using screen mirroring. I showed everyone the messages, the bank transfers, and the photos of Sarah's secret life. I revealed how my parents had sent her $75,000 for a beach house while refusing to help save their dying grandson. My mom started crying and tried to hug me. I moved away from her. My dad sat there staring at the floor. Sarah, who had actually shown up to this dinner for the first time in years, just sat on the couch with a smirk on her face. She told everyone I was being dramatic as usual and should understand that she needed the money more because she had 3 kids to support. I asked her if her kids were more important than Tommy's life. She said I was crazy for making comparisons. My mom tried to explain that Sarah was their first priority because she had always been more fragile emotionally and needed more support. My dad added that they helped Sarah because she wasn't as strong or independent as me. My Aunt Susan asked them how they could let their grandson die while spending thousands on Sarah's beach house. My parents had no answer. Other relatives started asking questions about all the times my parents and Sarah had borrowed money from them claiming emergencies. Sarah got angry and said I had no right to expose her private life. She said her kids would be traumatized if people found out about this situation. I told them they weren't my family anymore. They watched my son die so they could buy Sarah a beach house. I said they were dead to me just like Tommy was dead because of their choices. Sarah started screaming that I was trying to destroy her life out of jealousy. She said I had always been jealous of her because our parents loved her more. I left their house and blocked their numbers. A few relatives followed me out and said they would support me if I wanted to take legal action. Most of my cousins have blocked Sarah and my parents on social media. But some family members are messaging me saying I went too far by exposing Sarah's secret in front of everyone. They say I should have handled it privately. James supports my decision to cut contact with them but thinks I could have found a better way to expose the truth. He's worried about how this will affect our extended family relationships. But I don't care anymore. My son is dead because my parents chose to support Sarah's luxurious lifestyle instead of saving their grandson's life. Update 1: A lot has happened since I exposed Sarah and my parents at the family dinner. More family members have been coming forward with stories about Sarah's manipulation and my parents' lies over the years. Each new story makes me realize how deep their deception went. My Aunt Linda called me 3 days after the dinner. She broke down crying and told me about lending Sarah $30,000 last year. Sarah had claimed her oldest son needed emergency surgery for appendicitis. Linda emptied her retirement savings to help because she didn't want another child to suffer like Tommy. She later found out there was no surgery. Sarah used the money to renovate her beach house kitchen and install a pool. My cousin Emily's story was even worse. Last week, she came to my house and told me something that made me sick to my stomach. Sarah's husband Mark was actually Emily's fiancé 8 years ago. Emily and Mark dated through college and got engaged after graduation. They planned a big wedding, sent out invitations, and Emily even bought her dress. 2 weeks before the wedding, Mark disappeared. He left a note saying he wasn't ready for marriage. Emily had a breakdown and needed therapy for 2 years. Now she knows the truth. Sarah had been secretly dating Mark for months while he was engaged to Emily. Sarah convinced him to leave Emily and move to Florida with her. My parents knew everything. They helped Sarah and Mark pick out their house in Florida. They even attended their small private wedding 3 months after Mark left Emily. All this time, they watched Emily suffer through depression while knowing exactly what Sarah had done. Then 2 more stories came out. Sarah's first husband Tom found me on Facebook. I didn't even know Sarah had been married before Mark. Tom and Sarah got married right after college and had a daughter together. When their daughter was 2, Sarah cleaned out their bank accounts and disappeared. She took $40,000 of their savings and all of Tom's inheritance from his grandmother. Sarah told everyone that Tom was abusive and she had to escape. Tom lost his job, his house, and nearly lost custody of their daughter because of Sarah's lies. He had been searching for Sarah for years to get child support for their daughter, who is now 15. My parents knew where Sarah was the whole time. They paid for lawyers to fight Tom's custody claims and helped Sarah create fake documents showing she was in danger from Tom. Last week, James found something in our safe deposit box that made everything worse. When Tommy was born, my parents opened a trust fund for him, just like they claimed to do for all their grandchildren. They promised to put $1,000 into it every month until he turned 18. The trust should have had over $100,000 in it. We found documents showing they had been transferring all the money to accounts for Sarah's kids instead. James kept digging through our papers and found more evidence of their deception. Every time we applied for financial assistance for Tommy's medical bills, my parents wrote letters to the hospital saying they couldn't help us because they were retired and living on fixed incomes. But their bank statements show they were making huge transfers to Sarah during the same time. My dad's secretary reached out to me through LinkedIn. She said my dad had been using company money to help Sarah, marking the transfers as business expenses. He falsified documents to show Sarah was a business consultant for his insurance firm. The secretary estimated he had diverted over $200,000 of company funds to Sarah in the past 3 years. My mom's best friend, who works at the same school, told me that my mom had been stealing from the school's fundraising accounts to send money to Sarah. She covered it up by altering the records. The school raised money every year for student medical emergencies. My mom was in charge of this fund and had access to all the accounts. Sarah has been trying to contact me from different phone numbers since I blocked her. Sometimes she threatens to sue me for defamation and invasion of privacy. Other times she calls crying, saying she needs my help because Mark is asking questions about her past. Yesterday she left a voicemail saying she would tell everyone I abused Tommy if I didn't stop people from investigating her finances. My parents sent a letter through their lawyer yesterday. They offered to set up a new trust fund for my future children if I agree not to take legal action against them. They said they would put in $200,000 immediately as a sign of good faith. The letter also included a non-disclosure agreement they wanted me to sign, promising never to discuss Sarah's life or their financial support of her. Several relatives have cut all contact with my parents and Sarah. My dad's golfing friends have stopped inviting him to their weekly games after hearing what happened. My mom had to quit her book club because the other members, mostly parents of her students, didn't want to associate with her anymore. The hardest part is that people keep finding photos of Sarah's family on vacation in expensive places during the time Tommy was sick. Someone found pictures of them at Disney World from the same week we were begging my parents to help pay for Tommy's final surgery. In the photos, Sarah's kids are wearing matching outfits that cost more than what we needed to save my son's life. Update 2: Our lawyer found something that explains a lot about my parents' behavior, especially their extreme favoritism toward Sarah. We discovered Sarah isn't their biological daughter, she was adopted when she was 2 years old. They never told anyone, not even Sarah herself. The adoption papers came up during our lawyer's investigation into the missing trust fund money. My parents adopted Sarah after my mom had 4 miscarriages. They decided to keep the adoption secret because they worried it would affect Sarah's sense of belonging in the family. They didn't even tell our grandparents. They moved to a different city right after the adoption so nobody would question them about the sudden appearance of a 2-year-old. The lawyer also found evidence of my parents helping Sarah commit fraud over the years. When Sarah dropped out of college after 2 years, my parents paid someone $15,000 to create fake transcripts showing she graduated with honors. They got one of my dad's business contacts to write fake job references for her. Every job Sarah claimed to have over the years was fake, she never actually worked anywhere. My parents helped her create a false identity to get loans and credit cards. They used my dad's connections at the insurance company to get fake documentation. Sarah used this fake identity to take out over $300,000 in loans from different banks. My parents made the payments using money they took from my dad's company. When our lawyer told Sarah about the adoption, she completely lost control. She went on Facebook and posted everything. She revealed how my parents helped her hide from her first husband, how they covered up her credit card fraud, and how they helped her steal Emily's fiancé. She even admitted to lying about her first husband being abusive. Sarah posted screenshots of text messages showing how my parents helped her create fake medical emergencies to borrow money from relatives. She had a system. She would pick a relative who was doing well financially, make up a story about one of her kids needing medical treatment, and have my parents confirm her story. They scammed at least 7 different relatives this way. My parents finally broke down and admitted everything to our lawyer. Over the past 10 years, they spent more than $500,000 supporting Sarah and her family. They took out second and third mortgages on their house. They borrowed money from their retirement accounts. My dad even stole from his company's client accounts. When the lawyer asked them why they let Tommy die instead of helping us, their answer made me even angrier. They said they were afraid Sarah would cut them off from their grandchildren if they stopped giving her money. My dad said Sarah had threatened to disappear with the kids if they ever stopped supporting her lifestyle. My mom admitted she knew about Sarah's plan to steal Mark from Emily. She said Sarah had told her she was in love with Mark and would do anything to have him. Instead of stopping Sarah, my mom helped her arrange secret meetings with Mark. She even helped Sarah write the letter that Mark left for Emily. Sarah's first husband Tom is now working with our lawyer. He has proof that my parents helped Sarah fake domestic violence charges against him. They paid a doctor to create false medical records showing injuries. They used these records to help Sarah get restraining orders against Tom. This prevented him from seeing his daughter for years. My dad's company started an internal investigation after finding out about the stolen money. They discovered he had been creating fake insurance policies and keeping the premiums. He wrote policies for people who didn't exist and used the money to support Sarah. The company fired him and is pressing criminal charges. Several of my dad's business partners have cut ties with him. They're worried about being connected to his fraud. My mom had to retire early from teaching after parents complained about having someone involved in fraud teaching their children. The school is also investigating money missing from student activity funds. My parents had to put their house up for sale to pay their legal bills. They're facing possible criminal charges for fraud, embezzlement, and helping create false documents. Sarah is being investigated for identity theft, loan fraud, and filing false police reports about her first husband. Update 3: The situation with my family has changed completely in the past 6 months. My parents had to sell their house and most of their possessions to pay their legal debts. They now live in a small 1-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. My dad's company won their lawsuit against him, and he has to pay back $400,000 he stole from client accounts. He's working as a night security guard now because no insurance company will hire him. Sarah's life fell apart after Mark found out about her first marriage and all her lies. He hired a private investigator who uncovered even more things about her past. Sarah had another child from a relationship before her first marriage. She gave up her parental rights and never told anyone about this child. Mark was disgusted that she had abandoned 2 children before starting a family with him. Mark filed for divorce and got full custody of their 3 kids. The judge agreed that Sarah was an unfit mother because of her history of fraud and abandonment. She's not even allowed unsupervised visits with the children. Mark moved back to his hometown in Texas with the kids. Sarah keeps making new social media accounts to contact him, so he had to get a restraining order. Sarah's first husband Tom won his back child support case. The court ordered Sarah to pay him $150,000 plus interest for the years she disappeared. Since she has no money or job, they're garnishing the small inheritance she got from our grandmother last year. Tom's daughter, who is now 15, refuses to speak to Sarah or my parents after learning how they helped hide her from her father. My cousin Emily filed a civil suit against Sarah for emotional distress over the stolen fiancé incident. Emily's lawyer found old emails proving that Sarah and my parents planned the whole thing months in advance. They deliberately targeted Mark because his family had money. The case was settled out of court last month, but Sarah had to sign over her beach house to Emily as part of the agreement. James got a job offer in Colorado with better pay and full medical coverage. We decided to move for a fresh start. I'm 4 months pregnant, but this time we're keeping it private. Only my Aunt Linda and 2 cousins know about the pregnancy. We've decided to have no contact with my parents or Sarah. Some relatives still try to get me to forgive my parents. They say my parents have lost everything and learned their lesson. My Uncle Bob keeps sending me messages about how my parents cry at family gatherings and miss us. But I told him that my son missed out on his whole life because of their choices, so I don't care about their tears. Sarah was arrested last week for trying to open new credit cards using her kids' social security numbers. She's facing criminal charges for identity theft. She called me from jail asking for help with bail money. I blocked the jail's phone number. The only good thing that came from this situation is that other family members have gotten closer. My Aunt Linda moved near us in Colorado to help when the baby comes. My cousins have started a group chat where we talk daily and support each other. We're building a new family without my parents and Sarah. I still miss Tommy every day. His pictures are all over our new house, and we talk about him often. But I'm glad the truth came out about my parents and Sarah. At least they can't hurt anyone else with their lies anymore. The hardest lesson I learned from all this is that sometimes the people who should love you the most are the ones who hurt you the worst. But I'm focusing on the future now and on building a better life with the family members who actually care about us.